Also, the various social media platforms of the family were kept on the group for members to subscribe, follow, like, and share with our family members. And lastly, we were reminded to write weekly report about activities that went on in the Ghana group within the week. COVID-19 updates in Ghana. Since the emergence of COVID-19, Ghana has recorded a total of 161,841. Active cases currently are 396. Recovery since the emergence of COVID-19, 160,000. Deaths, 1,445. And then total number of vaccine doses given are 16,203,630. Derry Anthony, speaking from Ghana. I am because we are. Thank you.
I am because we are. Thank you so much, Ambassador Derry Anton, for presenting a report on behalf of people of Ghana. We appreciate you. Thank you.
Thank you too.
All right. On next, we're going to have our ambassador from Zambia. Her name is Bochama. Yes, Mapo, you can unmute yourself and present a report on behalf of people of Zambia.
Yes, good afternoon.
Yes, sir. Good afternoon. We can hear you. We can go ahead and present the report, or even you can introduce yourself as well.
This is Ambassador Mabel from Zambia. I Love Black People Zambia Weekly Report, dated 10th June 2022. Weekly review from 5th June 2022 to 10th June. The summary of activities started our meetings, our Saturday conference meeting by enjoying our usual spokesman, report on the weekly activities of our respective countries, regions, and ambassadors groups. Our most Pan-African class session delivered by Professor D. Tyron, read author book, T. Washington book, Pan-Africanist and Queen Mother, Nana Akuna, N. Zenzela, traditional healer and founder of the Natural Path Holistic Wellness Center, LLC, represented respectively. We were glad to continue with the marathon of seasoned health lessons and Pan-Africa education. Our regular Tuesday newsletters, which highlights on education, health, legal, finance, transportation, beauty, food and accommodation, and other Black-owned / Black-friendly content was enjoyed. Members were encouraged to submit their contributions on Thursday for review and publishing in the newsletter. I Love Black People members were encouraged to follow, like, retweet, and comment on the various social media platforms of the group. Our co-founder, Skinless Skinner, is live on Twitter, and we're also Facebook Live every week with interesting Black motivated contents. Our honorable ambassadors and members were encouraged to embark on our group activities to help affect the mission and visions of the I Love Black People activities in protection against racism and xenophobia. We join hands with our brothers and sisters all over the world facing any form of distress, xenophobic attacks, and racism with encouragement, relief, hope, and love messages. I Love Black People members, family, and friends are to use our emergency button located at the bottom left of the ILoveBlackPeople.com website on the hit and fight or protection against racism and xenophobic attacks, where
Yes, hello. Mabo, can you hear us?
Yes, I think we have lost our sister Mabo. She faced some network hiccups. Moving next, we're going to have our brother Edwin Chamba to report on behalf of Tanzania. Yes, brother Edwin, can you hear me? Yes, you can unmute yourself, Ambassador Edwin. I think Edwin is also
Hello,
placing some. Yes, we can hear you now.
Yeah, you can hear me.
Yes, we can hear you clearly. Go ahead and present your report.
Yes, greetings everyone. I'm Edwin Chamba, an ambassador from Tanzania, and here is our report. In this week, we managed, I managed to visit Ibungilo Islamic Orphanage to show my support for them and everything to give them. In our group, we had some of the activities that were needed to be performed, including the download of the app for I Love Black People, so that we can recommend all Black-owned and Black-friendly businesses. And then other activities were provided. It was newsletters that we are needed to share in all platforms and publications of social media and other platform. And for the next release of the weekly newsletter. Also, following I Love Black People accounts on social media, confirming for the Saturday Pan-African Community Zoom call and inviting friends and family to join us in our movement, making sure that we protect Black people from racism and xenophobia. COVID-19 updates in Tanzania show that we have the ways of protective measures that we are adhering with all over the country. And the number of cases now is 35,354, and deaths now have reached 840 deaths. I encourage everyone to make any way possible to invite some members, family, friends, and spread the word of love about our movement, and tell the word on how to join us at www.iloveblackpeople.com. Thank you. I am because we are.
Thank you so much, Ambassador Edwin, for the report. We appreciate you. Thank you so much again for presenting on behalf of people of Tanzania. On next, we're going to have our Ambassador, Clyde Fowler from Guyana. Yes, Brother Clyde, you can unmute yourself. Yes, Brother Clyde Fowler, can you unmute yourself?
Good day, good day. Can you hear me?
Yes, sir, we can hear you now.
Thank you. Good morning, everybody. Thank you for the opportunity to be able to share this report. My report is as follows. I am enthused by the Black People African International Movement classes and app. The experience is mellow, motivating, and transcending. This is because here in Guyana, we have a Pan-African movement, the Guyana branch, of which I'm the chairman of the international committee that was established in 1938. However, we suffer a great loss when Professor Dr. Joycelyn Lunt passed away last year. We haven't been able to have meetings as regularly because of the pandemic, but I'm truly encouraged by the classes of Professor White and the teaching on her teaching of Pan-Africanism, and a statement of her teaching that has meant my interest is that Pan-Africanism is a call to action, far from what is being seen here in Guyana. A revival is truly needed, and it starts with me, I believe. Also, the teaching of Nana, on herbs, I think it's Queen Mother, sorry, on herbs is very enlightening. I am now working part-time with a herbalist and sharing what I am learning from both the classes and work, and have a great health change and seeing others change too. And this is truly inspirational and a blessing. I was also able to add the herbal business to I Love Black People app yesterday. So I'm excited about that. And in relation to COVID-19, here in Guyana, it's out of control because the government does not know what they're doing. But the herbalists are making concoctions that seems to be very effective. So thank you very much for allowing me to share this opportunity. And I am, because we are here from Guyana with Love, respectfully submitted, Ambassador Clyde Fowler.
Yes, thank you very much, Ambassador Clayford. Up next, we are going to introduce our new moderators. They can take like 20 seconds to introduce themselves, then we can continue with the updates about I Love Black People. Is Domingo Antonio, can you hear us? You can mute yourself. Okay, yes.
Yeah. Yes, I can hear you.
Yes, you only have 30 seconds.
Okay. Hello, thank you for this opportunity. Of course, my name is Domingo. I'm a newly member of the I Love Black People, and I'm also a new member of as a moderator. Thank you.
Yes, thank you very much, Antonio Domingos from Angola. Up next, we are going to have Christopher Sakala from Zambia. Christopher Sakala, can you hear us? You can unmute yourself.
Hello, yes, Christopher Sakala on
Yes.
call. Yes, I'm Christopher Sakala, basically from Zambia, the capital city in Lusaka particular. I am a member of I Love Black People. I am because we are. And indeed, I'm one of the newly selected moderator. Thank you so much.
Yes, thank you very much, Christopher Sakala from Zambia. Up next, we are going to have Patrick Matabo from South Africa. Patrick, can you hear us? You can unmute yourself. Patrick, you can unmute yourself. I think maybe he's having issue with the internet. Up next, we are going to have Derry Anthony. Derry Anthony, can you hear us?
Yeah, I'm Derry Anthony, one of the newly selected moderators from Ghana. I encourage all of us to keep on spreading the love and everything about the family. And we should take time in explaining activities of the family to our family and friends so that they can all come and join, so that at the end, all of us can achieve the aim of this family. Thank you very much.
Yes, thank you very much, Derry Anthony. Yes, so up next, we are going to talk about the I Love Black People Safe Places app. My brother Awad can help me with sending the link in the chat section. Yeah, so if you have the old app, please make sure that you update your app, that you can start receiving notifications of places around you asking you if that place is Black friendly. And also, like, we have to invite our friends and family also to download the app and start recommending or identifying safe places. So if you have any question about the app, you can just send it to the comment section. I'm still on the call, then I'll be able to answer it. So we are going to have our today's speaker, Mr. Christopher Mapondera. Can you hear us?
Yeah, just a minute. Can you hear me?
Yes, we can hear you, sir. Welcome.
Yeah, okay. I'm just trying to get my full screen. You can see, you can all see me as well, right?
No, we can't see you.
Yes, some issue here. I don't know what is going on. Let me just get.
Yes, we can see you right now.
You can see me now.
Yes.
Okay, I can't see myself, but anyway, let's get going. Anyway, welcome everybody. I always get great joy, getting to talk to you every Saturday. One of the challenges that I have, there's so much going on in Africa and in the diaspora that, to try and pick and see which item, you should concentrate on can be quite a challenge. Just given, that the wide range of people we have on our listening to us, from all over the world, that you have to think in terms of what is the something that could, touch on everybody. As I've emphasized before, that the major thing that we always have to do as Pan-Africanists is to keep abreast of what is going on in the Pan-African world. It's something that at times we take for granted. We don't know. At times we have to rely on what CNN is telling us is going on in Africa, and then the images that we see are only images of people suffering, people dying in the Mediterranean Ocean, trying to flee Africa to go to Europe, or people that are starving and due to internal conflicts and so forth. But what we don't see quite often are the brighter sides of our African continent, that we've got the thriving cities, we've got thriving young people who are coming up with all kinds of innovations, that are changing the lives of our people on the continent. I was looking, I don't have the specific statistics right now, that of all the major continents, Africa had the highest increase in the amount of investment coming in, particularly in the technology areas. The only problem with that is that the majority of the people who are investing in our development are not us as Africans. The proportion of us who may have money to invest in Africa is probably small. But there's also another level of investment that is taking place, which again does not fall within the definition of foreign direct investment by the IMF or World Bank and so forth. But this is direct investment, that the diaspora are making directly to their own communities. Again, the diaspora definition at times seems to be confined to those who have physically left Africa and gone to other continents. But you also have a lot of people who have moved from one part of Africa to the other, where they are providing their services, whether it's in terms of consultants or they're involved with the multinational corporations and what have you, and they do send a lot of money home to their countries, for their families and so forth. Right now, it is estimated that the African diaspora sends as close to 40 billion US dollars a year to Africa in terms of remittances. But the World Bank, IMF, they don't seem to track where does that $40 billion end up and what impact it is making, on the African continent. $40 billion, it's a much larger figure than all the aid that we get from the Western countries, even from the World Bank itself, what have you. So it was a way in which we ourselves have to find a way in which we can identify the areas where we are investing, the remittances that we are making and what impact it is making. The reason why they don't, again, want to talk much about what is going on with the remittances that we are making is that it makes the NGOs, that are all over Africa become irrelevant. I mean, if as African people we are providing this much money ourselves for our own, family development and so forth, what do we need the NGOs for? But you must take into account that the NGOs are there for a purpose, to try and extend the control of their mother countries on Africa. There's no NGO that comes to give you aid for nothing. That aid is used to soften you up, to open up ways in which the country where they came from has an influence of us. But you don't see the same thing happening in these countries where an outside NGO come and dealing with their local populations. They have very, very strict laws that make it almost impossible for for an NGO to come into a country, let's say in the US, and then they start working, with some communities out in the remote areas, where the impact of that help is going to affect how those communities vote for people to go into Congress and what have you and so forth. So they will not allow stuff like that. And yet now on our own continent, they will fund people, NGOs, to come and teach about self-governance. What is self-governance? I mean, we've been free for a long time, so we don't need somebody to come and tell us how to run our affairs. But what they are literally doing that, okay, we are going to show you how you should run your affairs, but they must give us this kind of outcome, this kind of results, which will be favorable to the country where those NGOs come from. Now you can see also now one of the things that is happening, particularly in the central region of Africa, which to me is a replication of what we saw happening in Libya. When Gaddafi started talking about setting up a African, economic zone, having an African currency, which is backed up, with the gold that, we have an abundance of it and so forth. You know what happened to Libya and also what happened to Gaddafi. Since the death of Gaddafi, there's been so much instability in Libya, and it's going to take a long time before the Libyan people, can come to the realization, that their infighting is not in their own interest, but it's in the interest of other people, that the best thing for them to do is to work together. Now, you see the same thing happened with the DRC. I wish we had some comrades from DRC who could also tell us how things are on the ground. But the news that we are getting from a Pan-African perspective is that since President Tshisekedi for DRC decreed that no company is going to be allowed to export raw minerals out of DRC, all of a sudden you got so many militias all over the shore roaming the country and so forth, bringing in, again, instability. If the reports that are coming out are true, I would not be surprised, that in a very short space of time, you may see more upheavals coming up in the DRC. But I mean, this is the pattern that we've had. Again, the DRC story is not a new story. That goes back from the time of Patrice Lumumba. The reason why Patrice Lumumba was killed was that he was talking about controlling the resources of DRC. And consequently, the colonizers organized the military that was supposed to be allegiant to DRC, and recognizing Patrice Lumumba as the head of state. They used them to kill him and so forth. It's only now that they are beginning to start to be open about what their motivations were, resulting in the death of Lumumba. So I think this is a thing that we must always be looking out. And I've always said that whenever you hear for news of what is going on in Africa, first of all, find out who is giving that news. What is their interest? What is the perspective in which they are releasing that news? You have to find your own sources. I think this is where being part of I Love Black People really becomes very invaluable for all of us, because we can be able to talk to our friends, who are in these different countries and say, hey, we hear such and such a thing is happening in your country. What exactly is going on and so forth. And then they can enlighten us. So basically that is my message today, that we just have to be on the lookout for how we get destabilized, because the more we want to control our resources, the more vicious the destabilization take place. That we should also be wary of the people that come in the name of trying to help us, that they are not really coming to help us per se, but they're coming to further the interests of the countries where they came from. And the 99% of the things that they try to help us with are things that we can do for ourselves. They want to continue instilling in us so that, you can't think for yourself, you can't do for yourself, but we can come and help you how to think. We can come and help you to show you how you can make use of your resources. But the minute you want to get out of the mode in which they want you to do it, then you see that there is problems start to coming up. So that's what I have for you today. As I promised the last time, next time I'll be talking of some other major resources that we have on the continent. There are some such things like the sun. We never look at the sun as being a major resource for our development in Africa, but so much abundance of water, and even the soil itself, it's something that we take for granted. Say, okay, I'm just stepping on it, but we don't look at it in the context of it as a resource for our sustenance, for our economic growth, and change the dynamics, in the mindset at which we look at these resources. Well, that's what I have for you today. If there are any questions, you can read them to me. Otherwise, it's always a pleasure talking to you. And again, I always urge you, if you have some specific topics you want me to talk about, to discuss, send them to Yvonne or to Awad, so that I can prepare for them ahead of the Saturdays. Okay, that's what I got for today.
Yes, there is a comment from Zoe Owusu. He's saying we Africans had our own system of government before insurancy of whites. We are trying hard to move back to old ways. Can we do this?
Yeah, of course. That, as I indicated some time back, the funny situation we have, the colonizers, they came and studied how we used to live, took that knowledge, put it on paper, use it themselves, and bring it back to us in a format, that it makes it look as if that is something new. As I get it as an example, that what you call regenerative agriculture or permaculture, where you mix different plants, which have got a symbiotic relationship and so forth. This is something that is put here by the new, organic farming farmers. I mean, people pay a lot of money for food grown without chemicals and pesticides and so forth. But the ancestors were doing this for a long, long, long time. So I agree with you that all we have to do is to have scholars like yourself go back and start analyzing, what we used to do, what our ancestors used to do, and how we can bring it back to our day-to-day, lives. So I agree with you, yes.
Yes, there is another question from Domingos Antonio. He's asking, why can't Africa governments join forces for an economical freedom? SADC has been for long fight for that, but why no success till now?
I missed you're kind of blocking off from them. Can you say that again? There are some words I missed as we were saying.
Yes, he was asking, why can't Africa governments join forces for an economical freedom? SADC has been for long fight for that, but why no success till now?
Okay, well, first of all, the impact of the artificial boundaries that we had, we're still suffering from that. You still want to consider yourself as Zambia, or Zimbabwe, South Africa, Togo, and so forth, okay? But the AU has realized that, well, they have to have a shift of mind. This is why they're talking about the 2063 as the time by which there should be full integration of Africa. I don't know what kind of, and then the creation of the Africa free trade, area that is going towards, better integration of Africa, but more or less now on economic basis and so forth. You talk of, ECOWAS, they've done a lot of successes, in the sense that, you now have like an ECOWAS passport, you can move back and forth, and within the ECOWAS countries and so forth, which means when people can move freely in between countries without the burden of visas and so forth, it means, it makes it easy for trade and so forth. In SADC, you see that we have also done quite a lot of developments, for instance, like you've got this issue of the insurgents in Mozambique. SADC has come up and created an army to go and confront that insurgents. That's something that you never talked about before. You now have, free non-tariffs, for goods moving between, SADC countries and so forth. So there are some successes that have been done, but I don't know what level of success you are looking at. I'll be very glad to hear that from you next time. But otherwise, we must always look at the small successes that we have done. Some of them could have a major impact, but when we look at it from a point of view of failure, then we don't see anything positive that has happened with what we're doing. Okay, I think that is that. I think I've gone beyond my time. You got Sister Akua to come on board. So I'd like to thank you all very much.
All right, thank you so much, co-founder Mr. Mapondera, for a wonderful speech today. We did have some questions, but hopefully you answer these next week through your session. So on next, we're going to have Nana Akua for today's Pan-African Healthcare Lecture. Yes, Nana Akua, can you hear me?
I can. Good day, everyone. How are you, Award?
I'm good,
hey,
thank you.
Yvonne. Hello, everyone. Beautiful Black faces. Thank you all for joining us today. So we're talking about herbs, homeopathics, essential oils, I believe today, but I want to add in a bit of some different information today. And we're going to talk a little bit about some spiritual healing herbs, or herbs that are used for sort of personal protection and things of that nature. But let's do some of our sort of standard talking about some of the herbs. I will attempt to pull up my handout here. And if you allow me to share, well, have it pulled up. Let's see if it shares properly. If you'll allow me to share. I don't know if Award or Yvonne is doing it.
Yes, you're allowed.
Okay. There it is. Boom. You see it, right?
Yes, we can see it. Top natural painkillers.
Yes. So let's go to the top of the screen. So what I included in this packet, so you know, I've been an herbalist for 25 years at least. And of course, that's my first love. So it's always hard to kind of condense this information, and almost impossible to kind of put it into 30 minutes. So I want to just sort of scroll through pretty quickly what's included in this packet, and then invite you to email me for the packet if you're not in the WhatsApp group and already have it. Because I basically put a lot of information sort of for your reference. And so I wanted you to kind of have information on what herbs exist and how they're used for healing and that sort of thing. So this first handout, it has mainly Western, or what we would call Western herbs, or those found here in North and South America. However, I also have included some handouts on those specific to some different parts of the world. So if I can scroll through to that. So you'll find some that are native to West and South Africa. I included a packet of herbs that are native to, let me just tell you rather than trying to scroll through. How about that? Because this is even annoying to me and probably not easy to see. So it's not really going to work out well trying to scroll through. But I've included some handouts that will highlight herbs from China, from India, and from West and South Africa. And I think I mainly want to say herbs exist throughout different parts of the world to heal the body. That's why Mother, Father, God created them, and pretty much any and every condition that exists can be addressed with herbs. And I think it just depends on knowing how to identify what an issue is, or when an issue arises. Sometimes we ignore signs. Sometimes we ignore what may be going on with our bodies. Sometimes we maybe don't know how to identify things as a potential problem that can be addressed with herbs. So as previously discussed, I think it's always important to keep track of how you're feeling physically, how you're feeling mentally, emotionally, any and all things that impact your health, not just your physical health, but all things that affect your health. It's important to take note of. But as it specifically relates to your physical health, keep track of how you feel throughout the day, different times of the day, after you eat, after you drink certain foods, after you have come home from work, or before you've gone home from work, or when you first get up in the morning, how you feel by the time the end of the day comes, you're ready to retire to bed. Keep track of how you physically feel. Are you well rested? Are you overly tired or fatigued? Is your heart racing? Are any of your limbs numb or in pain or tingling? Are any of your joints swollen or sore? Is your stomach upset? Do you appear to be able to digest your food properly to where you're not feeling any discomfort, whether acid reflux or indigestion or stomach or any terms that we use for it? Are you able to eliminate your waste, move your bowels freely every day? Keep track of, if you have a blood pressure monitor, keep track of your blood pressure. Any and every way that you can monitor how you're doing physically, that's a task that I think we all should do every day. And really have a good understanding of how you feel, how you generally feel most days. Therefore, when something changes, when you feel different, when you are not well or as well as usual, or as well as you can be, take note of those things. And as you learn and build on your knowledge about what different herbs do, you may be able to assess, well, rather than this white black tea, this Lipton tea that I drink every evening, maybe I should start doing some immune boosting herbs, or maybe I should start doing some alterative herbs that will cleanse my blood and, heal my liver and my skin. Or maybe I should take some herbs that cool off my body. I get overheated. I live in a hot climate. I'm always on the go and I'm stressed and I'm having some inflammation and some other warming symptoms that refrigerant herbs can assist with. So keeping track and really knowing your body and how you feel at different times is important. And so with that, we'll then incorporate some of these herbs that we'll talk about today. Now, that's not to say to not go and seek professional help. This is just you taking charge of your own personal health and well-being, knowing what the baseline norm is, knowing how you feel when everything is okay, so that you'll even know at what point to go and seek help. So this is not about avoiding or not going for professional help, but knowing how to help yourself and when you're able to do that. I don't remember which week I have. I think we'll talk about it next week, but we also have, as part of the course, a personal care plan that I created, which kind of points those types of things. Especially good if you are a caregiver for someone else, or if you're a parent and you have children that of course you have to care for, or if you yourself have a chronic illness and you are prone to having certain attacks or outbreaks or flare-ups or what have you. A personal care plan kind of gives you a step-by-step tool that you've already pre-written out and pre-planned for, so that when you're at the height of an acute flare-up or something, you already have it written out, what to do, what to eat, what medicines to take, who to call for support, at what point to call for emergency help, or at what point to schedule an appointment with your doctor. So these are things that we will talk about. But the first thing you have to know is yourself and how you generally feel. And so that's just the first thing I want to say about herbs. You first need to know sort of where you are, how you feel, what's going on with your body. So we know that there are many, many different herbs that God has created. We know that God made the earth yield healing herbs, which the prudent man should not neglect, right? I'm not a Bible scholar, but I've come across over the years these different scriptures, and I love the ones that pertain to herbs and their healing properties and their importance in our healing. So that's one I wanted to highlight that I put in this article that I wrote many, many years ago. And so this is just sort of me going over some of my favorite herbs. So ginger, we know, for example, is native to many parts of the world. We know that you can access ginger in Africa, in China, in India, here in the Americas. And we know that ginger is good for the colon. It reduces spasms and cramps. It stimulates circulation. It's a strong antioxidant. It's an antimicrobial, meaning it'll heal different types of illnesses caused by viruses, by bacteria, by fungus, all of the disease-causing microorganisms. It's a powerful agent to heal those types of illnesses. We know it's good for sores, for wounds, for bowel disorders, for circulatory issues, indigestion, morning sickness, nausea, vomiting, a number of things, right? And we also know from an emotional perspective, we know that ginger also helps release anger and frustration, right? It also helps us to let go of resentment and jealousy, and it brings us to a place of contentment and balance. How about that for ginger? We've not talked about that of ginger, right? So all the wonderful things, reducing fever, helping with joint pain and all of that. How about being able to relieve some frustration, some anger, some resentment? We all have that. There's also a flower remedy that's excellent for that too. We'll talk about that in these, well, not in these 30 minutes, but there's a flower remedy that's also great for resentment. It's called willow. And that helps balance the emotions. If you've been here in the class before, you've heard me talk about the flower remedies that heal the emotions. But anywho, let me get back to ginger. So we know that ginger does all these wonderful things physically, but we also know that emotionally it's great for managing our anger and frustration. And want to see, and we know that also from a spiritual perspective, ginger adds strength to any kind of spiritual work that you're doing. So if you want to draw on new experiences, you're doing some kind of cleanse or bath where you want to embark on something new, ginger is great to add to that effort as well. Okay, so valerian, one of my favorite herbs. We know that valerian improves circulation. It's known as a really powerful sedative. It's great for children, seniors or elders. Also easily used for pregnant women who will suffer from back pains or body aches or things just from carrying a child. We know it helps with high blood pressure, insomnia, menstrual cramps, muscle cramps, stress, spasms, you name it. And we also know that it does have some emotional benefits as well. I don't have this handout, so you'll have to indulge me as I flip through. I believe valerian is mentioned here, or maybe not. Maybe not, but we know that valerian is great as a calming agent. It's a nervine herb. So whenever we need to kind of calm down, kind of cool ourselves, if we kind of have a hot head and we need to kind of sedate ourselves, right? And kind of calm down, valerian is excellent for that. Cayenne is another really good herb. You know that this aids in digestion, it improves circulation, stops internal bleeding, like from ulcers. It's good for the heart, the kidneys, the lungs, the pancreas, spleen, stomach, most of our internal organs, right? It's good for arthritis, rheumatism, helps ward off colds, and flus, infections, sore throats, things of that nature. And a lot of times in different herbal formulas, cayenne is included because it kind of helps as a stimulant and helps to aid the efficacy of other herbs in a formula. So cayenne is excellent for that. So not just for our seasoning, we know that cayenne can be really helpful for healing the body. Garlic, we know it detoxifies the body, it boosts the immune system functioning, helps lower blood pressure and circulation. Is good for a number of conditions: cancer, asthma, arthritis, colds, flu, digestive issues, heart issues, things of that nature. Garlic, did it say cholesterol? I don't think I mentioned that one, but it can be helpful in lowering cholesterol. A number of issues are handled by garlic. You can always add it to your food, but we know that it is very strong and kind of lasting. So even folk who don't want to include it in food to the amounts that maybe would be most beneficial, you can of course get it in odorless tablets. Rosemary is the next one I'll mention. Rosemary is great for fighting off bacteria. It helps relax the stomach, stimulate circulation, aids in digestion. It's a powerful astringent, so it'll extract or pull toxins and things from the body. It's good as a decongestant. So if you have a cold or flu, or if you have hay fever or sinuses or allergies, it can kind of decongest you from any excess mucus or drainage and that sort of thing. It's good for headaches, high and low blood pressure, circulatory problems, menstrual cramps. We know also that rosemary has some benefits emotionally. This is a common herb that's used. It clears like unwanted thoughts. So just think of clarity. So just as it will heal a headache in the head, also when our thoughts are unclear and we need clarity, rosemary also is great for that. It helps to move you towards a positive attitude, helps with your concentration, and it lifts you from negative thoughts, okay? And also, spiritually, rosemary is cleansing, it's purifying, it's great for spiritual work if you're kind of healing your heart, if you have had a loss or some sadness and that sort of thing. Also used in house blessing mixtures or rituals. So if you're doing home protection, home cleansing, or home blessings, rosemary is excellent for that as well. Charcoal is excellent for removing toxins from the body, specifically from the colon and the bloodstream. So we know that even if you go to the hospital and you've had food poisoning or overdosed or had some issues with something you've taken into the body, food, alcohol, what have you, we know that it absorbs the toxins and allows it to get moved out of the body. So same concept here. If you take it in powder form or capsule form, or you even can get it in tablet form, it's good for those side effects from that sort of thing. So if you think you've eaten something that has not agreed with you and has become toxic or poisonous to your body, it is good to use to help it serve as an antidote for that. So food poisoning, diarrhea, upset stomach, gas, is useful for all of those types of things. Aloe vera is, we know, found in different parts of the world. So usually most people can access aloe vera. We know that topically this heals burns, wounds, protects from burns and wounds even beforehand. A lot of people now are using it in hair products, natural hair products. We know that it stimulates cell regeneration. It's an astringent, an emollient, antifungal, antibacterial, antiviral. And we know that internally, it soothes the entire gastrointestinal tract. So it acts as a mild laxative, but also can be healing for irritated stomach or for a stagnant colon, okay? Has also been used for other conditions such as AIDS and HIV. It's been used for skin and digestive disorders as well. I would also say very popular nowadays is these aloe vera drinks. This is not what we're referring to here. We're talking only about the pure 100% aloe vera juice, not the drinks that you may find in different Asian stores and things like that. Even dollar stores and not thrift stores, but like discount stores now have these aloe drinks. That's not what we're referring to. We want 100% juice for the healing properties. Elder or elderberry, we know it builds the blood, cleanses the system, eases constipation, enhances immune function, fights off inflammation, helps lower fever, and a number of other things. Elderberry is good for respiratory issues. So of course, in this day of COVID, we know that elder has become very popular and not as easy to access as it once was. But emotionally, we know that elder is also really good. It's known as the elder mother. So it is considered a spiritual herb. It has powerful energy that awakens your intuition and opens up your chakras or your energy pathways, right? And so it helps the connection to the head And it's excellent for people with, well, we already talked about the physical benefits, colds, runny nose, hay fever. But in terms of spiritual and emotional properties, it helps kind of awaken your intuition. So moving on, wait, I think I scrolled into something before echinacea. Oh, peppermint, one of my favorites. Peppermint helps with stomach acidity. It's useful for chills, colic, diarrhea, headaches, heart trouble, indigestion, a number of things. You can use it in a diffuser for the aroma of it. You can add therapeutic or food grade oils to water to enhance the taste. Of course, the actual peppermint leaves you can add to water to enhance the taste and to aid in digestion and that sort of thing. So peppermint is very, very helpful. Emotionally, we know that it's used just kind of helps warm you up. So it just kind of helps enhance your energy, kind of awakens you, especially if you're really sensitive to energy, other people's energy, or bad energy that's around you. Peppermint is useful for that. It's sort of like if you're around someone and you kind of don't feel quite right, or especially if you touch them or you shake their hand and things don't feel right, or you're trying to awaken your intuition, peppermint is also good for that, okay? So how about that? In terms of spiritual uses for baths and cleansing, it's also good for peaceful sleep, bringing change, abundance, and wishes. So how about that for peppermint? Let me hit a few more. Echinacea golden seal, just as a first time user, or I don't have a lot, let me pick what herb to start with and start using. A combination of echinacea and golden seal is always going to be a good start or a good choice. Even if it just has to be one, I would maybe say go with golden seal. But we know these are two herbs that are often used together. They boost the immune system, enhance the lymphatic system and the immune response. So it helps fight off a lot of illnesses and conditions. Heals a lot of the different organs, you know, inflammation, colds, flu, snake bites, insect bites. This is a powerful combination of herbs together and even individually. So I won't spend a lot of time with that. These are pretty popular, pretty easy to find. Lavender is great for relieving stress and depression. It's good for your skin health, helps with burns and scars and things of that nature. Good for headaches, psoriasis, and other skin issues. We know that it has a calming and sedative effect. So a lot of times, similar to valerian, when we spoke about valerian, we know that this is often used if you need to kind of calm yourself down and bring yourself down from a rough or difficult day. Spiritually, it's a rejuvenating herb, great to take before meditating. It helps with particular chakras like the third eye chakra, if you're really trying to, again, tap into your intuition and connect with spirit. Some people use it for kind of psychic visions or spiritual visions, I'll say, rather than psychic. Some people get spooked out by that. And in terms of baths and other rituals, again, it just calms the nerves. So it kind of promotes harmony and peace and love and balance and that sort of thing. So again, trying to give you some of the physical benefits of these herbs as well as the spiritual and emotional benefits of it. Another one of my favorites is nettle. Nettle is great for this time of the year where some people are suffering from allergies and sinus problems, sinus infections, hay fever, that sort of thing. Nettle is excellent for that. It's a very powerful expectorant. So if you have an excess of mucus in your system and you need to expel it, this is great for that. It's also good for relieving pain, especially if you're talking about sinus pressure and pain that's around the eyes or in the head from this time of the year. It is also really high in minerals. So we've talked before about superfoods. This is one of those that are a super herb. And because we know herbs are food, I would put this, maybe I should make a list of superfoods and it be specifically herbs, right? So this is one I would consider. There are many others, but this is one I would consider a super herb as well. It contains high amounts of calcium, but also iron and other vital minerals that are essential for the body. Good for borders, you know, any thyroid issues, inflammatory issues, and I already talked about the mucus. Let's see if nettle has some other benefits. I don't think I've ever used it spiritually. So, okay, so emotionally, it's good if you feel worn out or drained, right? Because it's so highly nutritious, so that makes sense, right? This will help you energetically feel better, more vibrant, more vital, and it kind of recharges your system. So that's great to know. So let me not go any further. Again, 30 minutes is not enough time. There's so much to cover with this, but I hope that just as opposed to just giving you physical aspects of herbs, I wanted to make sure that you knew some of the other benefits. Yeah, so what you want is the food grade activated charcoal that you would find in like a health food store, or that you know would get, that we know can be consumed, because of course we know charcoal is used for, you know, other things, especially in places where, you know, you're using your outdoor stoves with the charcoal, but we're talking about activated charcoal that you would find in a health food store that we're ingesting and adding. And actually, now they may be your local herb person or your traditional healer or your Sangoma or your Ilarisha or your Akomfo that may know, of course, how to make that specifically, because I know that in certain areas on the continent that charcoal is all over the place. Yeah, well, spiritual protection, and I appreciate this question about spiritual protection. This is very serious, and I don't usually spend a lot of time with this, and some people think it's, you know, sacrilegious and spooky. But if you are doing all this to protect your physical body, and even if you've gotten advanced to protecting your emotional and your mental self, but you're leaving your spiritual self open, it's all for naught. It's pointless. So sage, copal, there's so many herbs and things that you can use for spiritual protection. I would suggest, Antonio, that you email me and I'll send you this list. But it's important. Always protect yourself. Always pray, do whatever rituals that are necessary before you walk out the door. If you know that in your neighborhood, in your community, at your workplace, that you're going to be surrounded by evil, you best protect yourself. Empower manhood. Ginseng, saw palmetto, yohimbe, these are all herbs that are really good. Yohimbe is native to Africa, I don't know which part, but these are herbs you should be able to find that will help with manhood and male reproductive systems to make you stronger and more vital in your functioning. Yeah. Okay, Ghanaians, yes, that is what I know very well. Yes, thank you for that, Zoe Owusu. Yeah, so if you need, again, I don't know if Award can type it in the comments. If you send me an email requesting the handouts, and if you want to specify the spiritual ones, specify that, because that's not in the usual packet. But if you are interested in the spiritual healing herbs, I will gladly send you the list I've kind of come up with for that. And I'm just trying to scroll through. Yes, thank you. So I think I'm out of time anyway. But I think I got the questions and comments that were listed there. And if not, again, email me. And next week we'll talk a little bit more. We'll talk about stress and some other ways to alleviate stress and handle our days more efficiently and productively. And until then, I bid you good health and peace. And I'll see you all next week.
Yes, thank you very much, Nana Akua. Thank you for the wonderful lecture. I think the attendees learned a lot from you. See you next week.
See you next week.
Okay, thank you. Yes, up next, we're going to continue with the Pan-African history courses with Dr. Wright Lynn. Dr. Wright, can you hear us?
Yes, I can. Can you hear me clearly?
Yes, we can hear you. Welcome.
Okay. 1 second, you'll see me in a second too. Okay. I think my camera. Let's see if they can do it. Maybe see. Okay, good. You can see me. All right. Good morning or afternoon or evening, everyone, wherever you are, right? I know we're all in different places. Welcome to the Pan-African History and Organizing class. I have to first start and apologize because I'm having technology issues. So I sent stuff this week that never delivered, and I didn't double back because I thought that this issue that I had or have been having on occasion in the past was resolved. So what I'm going to do right now to make up for that is one, post precisely those things in the WhatsApp group and then open them as we go. So instead of waiting till afterwards, I'm going to start out with them. Now, in the course of the week, I also had some people like contact me and ask me about my book, which although I am using 2 chapters in this course, I'm not making it, it's not a requirement. I'm not asking people to buy the book, Booker T. Washington in Africa, because in fact, the book is, chapters, the book chapters are going to be given to you. So there's really no need for people to buy the book. However, I do realize that some people are interested in the book, Booker T. Washington in Africa, The Making of a Pan-Africanist, because it is a little different and unique. I just dropped my earring. Okay, so, sorry guys, hold on 1 second. I don't want to. Okay. I don't want to leave that. I have pets who will actually pick that up. Okay. So I'm going to be sharing these things in real time, starting with the film. So let me take myself off camera real quick again. Starting with the film that I promised to share, which is The Journey of Man, A Genetic Odyssey, a film about the origin of humanity, okay? And so I will be sharing that. And I'll probably show even a clip or so while we're together today. Okay, so hold on 1 second. Let me do that. The other item I'll be sharing is, I'm just going to jump ahead and share both of the chapters from the book, which is Booker T. Washington, Pan-Africanism and Pan-Africanness, right? And that is, those are the 2 chapters that will be shared from the context of the book, Booker T. Washington and Africa. So I'm in the WhatsApp group right now. If you guys are in the WhatsApp group, if you're in the WhatsApp group, you will see that I'm sharing the link for this film, okay? Okay. And I'm also going to show a blip from the film. I have a question for the administrator real quick. Yvonne,
Yes.
are the other items here, like the I Love Black People ambassadors and US I Love Black People, are they all getting the same materials as the Pan-African History and Organizing or no?
No.
Okay, so I don't give them. So we just have the 2 sections of Pan-African history and organizing. Is that right?
Yes.
Okay, all right, perfect. Thank you. Because I actually, all right, that's good to know because I actually shared some items in the past that were from were for the Pan-African history groups in there, not knowing that they also don't get the same thing. So thank you so much. Okay, so that has been posted in both of the sections. And then I'm about to share the chapter and I'm gonna open it up. We'll read that together as well. So sorry, you're not getting the visual just for the second, but you will in a moment. One second. Okay. My tech. Okay. Here we go. Hold on 1 second, folks. I'm just trying to share it properly. Okay. Pan-African history. Okay, so you should see it momentarily. So there you go. 1 section, 2 sections. All right, I hope that worked. I'm gonna I'm going to double check, and I'm on a computer as well as a device today, so hopefully I can back it up if it didn't. So you should have saw that just post, and I'm going to be posting the other case, which is the African exclusion measure, which is a very important chapter of the book. Really sort of like the money chapter, although very short, that gives you a literal, everyday, real life example of Pan-Africanism in practice in the realm of legislation and policy. Okay. So I'm going to be showing this on the screen in a second so you know what I'm talking about. Okay, so I'm there. I'm gonna share screen. Can you give me permission? It's saying only hosts can share. Can I have permission to share with the screen, please?
Yes, you're allowed.
Okay. Share screen. Okay, thank you so much. 1 second. Screen. So if you go into, you're seeing my device screen right now, but if you go into, you know, the course, you should see the documents there, as you should be able to see that right now. One is the film, The Journey of Man, A Genetic Odyssey. The other 2 items are chapter 2, which we're going to get into right now, Booker T. Washington, Pan-Africanism and Pan-Africanists. And the only reason why I use this is because this chapter from my book is because of the fact that I know for sure that it chronicles the history of Pan-Africanism throughout the African world, okay? And that's a very important point that I want to make sure that we all get. And it also gives you a little bit of the history of the organizational development around Pan-Africanism, meaning the first Pan-African Conference, the Pan-African Congresses, so on and so forth. And then it also addresses the two most notable, I guess you can say, or two notable Pan-Africanists at that time, which are Du Bois and Booker T. Washington, Garvey, both of whom had relationships with Booker T. Washington. And you get to see how Du Bois and Garvey both develop organization, advance the plight of African people, but how different they are in doing that but still maintaining a commitment to Pan-Africanism, right? And I'll give you a working definition of what that is. So all of that is going to come from this chapter. You get some knowledge of the climate at the time that Pan-Africanism emerges as a constituted concept, and the phrase itself, the term itself is coined, and you'll get a working definition from this chapter. So we're going to do this on the front end in the sense that instead of me giving it to you to read and then us covering, I'm catching up. So I'm giving you a sort of review or preview of what you're going to read in terms of this and what you should get from it. And then we'll touch base on it when you come back. But this is a very important chapter, hence the main chapter I use from this book, okay? And then the other document is much later in the book. It is the final chapter in that book. And it is a case called the African Exclusion Measure, where none other than Booker T. Washington actually challenges US legislation that was designed to lock out anyone of the Black or African race from the United States forever. Okay? And it wasn't anyone but Booker T. Washington, who had the power to influence outcomes in the United States legislatively. And I will tell you all about the details of how this case comes about, how this legislation comes about when we get to it. So that is also there for you. It's much shorter. It's succinct and it's very precise. It gets into the development of the legislation, how it is initiated in the Senate, and what Booker T. Washington does to challenge it. And then, of course, you have the film that I suggested about the origin of humanity, right? I start all my courses out with this. I don't care where or what I'm teaching. I start this conversation out with this documentary called The Journey of Man, A Genetic Odyssey. Why? Because we want to establish that to be human means to be African first and foremost, and for the longest time on this earth. Being human meant to be African. They were synonymous. So when we're talking about protecting the lives of Black people, African people, and by the way, for me, the way I look at Black identity is that Black is a characteristic, and African is who we are. It tells you where we're indigenous to, right? But it also, in many ways, is a synonym for human, because no human being lived outside of a cultural context. The first human beings are in Africa. So for most of the time that humanity has been in existence, African is what it meant to be human, meaning being on the African continent, right? And sure, we compromise because we have ethnic diversity and all of that. But if we were to say what the common experience of the human was, in spite of or in light of our diversity, the common experience was, for the longest time, all of us being indigenous to the African continent, originating somewhere on the African continent. Okay? And then we are, yes, responsible for the world's diversity as a result of our migratory patterns around the world. Okay? And so this right here, this film qualifies this theory about the peopling of the world, the migratory patterns around the world, and qualifies it with the science. Okay? Qualifies it with the science. And shows that through going around the world and mapping it with the DNA. Okay? And that's good, primarily because now we have the theory and then you can prove or disprove it with the practice. By the way, this theory that humanity began in Africa and it migrated around the world is not a European thing. So while I'm giving you this film to watch, I don't endorse everything that this geneticist, he's a white geneticist named Spencer Wells. There are a couple of things that I have to say. I'm utilizing this film, this documentary, for the purpose of us extracting the information that is useful to us, like the fact that this age-old theory and understanding that African people migrated to the four corners of the world and developed in those respective places into various cultures and having linguistic differences and all of those kind of things, constructing culture in those locales. That is an age-old understanding, right? But this film basically takes science, DNA, modern science, and qualifies that. Test that. So you see him go around the world and speak to different groups, get their DNA through their blood, and establish that they are in fact people whose origins are found only in Africa, can be traced back to Africa, okay, without dispute. So that's very powerful. Now, one, he's a European. He tries to say science is European. Wrong. He uses different terms with regard to the Khoisan, which I'm going to show you a clip right now of when he gets to the Khoisan people of Southern Africa, specifically Southwest Africa, present day Namibia. He knows that they are Khoisan. He knows that that's their name, that's what they're called. However, he continues to call them the Sand Bushmen or things of that nature. Very ignorant. We're not endorsing that. We're just utilizing him, utilizing him and the film to get understanding of what it looks like to gather the DNA of the world's people who are actually connected through a genetic marker that originated in Africa. And also to just glean a little bit about their attitudes when they find out that this very study is about connecting them to their human origin in Africa. You're going to see all kinds of responses. And yes, those responses are what we're dealing with today with regard to being African people, with regard to being Black people, okay? However you identify, right? We are bound together in that. So I'm going to give you a clip of that, just the part where he begins with the Khoisan and explains to them why he wants a little thing of their blood so he can look for this genetic marker that he is going to trace around the world on the Y chromosome, which is the male chromosome. Okay. And so you'll see that. Actually, I'll just go to that now so that
in the Sahara, out
I'll
into
just
North
go
Africa,
to that
out
really
into the
quickly
Middle
so you
East.
can see, because you're going to see what the
And from
Khoisan
here,
look
they were
like
poised
too.
to launch themselves on the
And
rest of the world. So
have
where
a
next?
distinct look
The genetic markers
in the
show that
sense
one
that
branch from the Middle
they
East made its way
are
swiftly
sort
into
of
India.
a comprehensive.
This small group traveling down into India from the north
They encompass
was so successful that their numbers
a lot
quickly
of
multiplied.
features from many of the world's people, right?
Now
So
we're
hold
getting
on
somewhere.
1 second.
When they left Africa 50,000 years ago, the ancestors of these
That's
New
not
Age
where I
people
wanna
had
get to.
state-of-the-art
Hold
hunting
on.
technology. Earliest
All
ancestors.
right, here we go. So I'm just gonna show you this real quick. Let me check in. Yvonne, when I play this, can you hear?
Yes, we can hear you.
Okay, all right, perfect. So here we go.
50,000 years on, I hear their numbers are dwindling fast. Soon they could be gone entirely. I'm arriving not a moment too soon.
Hello? How are you? I'm Spencer.
And my two children, they are boys. This is my wife.
Amazing. Do you want to see a picture of my daughter? This is her in her school uniform. What's her name? Margot.
I have to explain to them why I'm here. But how do I begin? For a start, what's Bushman for geneticist anyway? I sense this is really going to be tough for a lab rat like me.
I just want to tell you a little bit about why I've come here. It's mostly to find out about your way of life. I'm really excited to be here. You know, it's such a dream for me to get to meet the San people, the Bushmen. In a way, you carry a secret in your blood, and you can think about it like a family tree.
I explained that the tree was just like the family that we all belong to. My family line is one of the small fractured branches at the very top, while theirs is the oldest on Earth, the biggest branch at the base of the trunk. I get the feeling I'm not explaining this at all well, but they're way too polite to say so. This is really quite embarrassing.
So it's a great privilege for me to come and meet my distant relatives and the people who give us a glimpse of all of our ancestors. So in one sense, we're all Khoisan. We're all San people. It's just that my skin is slightly redder.
We would like to thank you for the information that you brought for us.
This is like a dream for me. Everything predicted in their blood seems to be written in their faces. It's like looking at a composite model of every face from around the world. The eye shape of East Asians, the high cheekbones of Mongolians, the mid-brown skin that could turn darker or lighter. So how do I know that of all the people on Earth, the San are direct descendants of our oldest ancestors? I'll try to explain a little better this time. I work with DNA, our very own manual of life. It's in our blood, in every cell of our body, orchestrating our life processes. DNA is a ladder of just 4 linked molecules, A, C, G, and T, strung together in pairs in an incredibly long and complex sequence. If laid out, the DNA from one person would stretch to the moon and back 3,000 times. In our cells, this chain is broken into 46 bundles called chromosomes. Sheer length, DNA is prone to develop small glitches in its sequence. They're called mutations. Everybody has them. When they occur, we pass them on to our children. We call these inherited mutations markers. As our chromosomes pass down through the generations, they carry these markers with them. They write our history. They are the source of our time machine, the way we can see back to our earliest ancestors. The markers I follow are found only in men, on their Y chromosome, the chromosome that makes men men. But of course, men don't travel alone, and the journey of man is the journey of everyone. I was walking through the village and I saw that they had massive piles of these sitting around everywhere. I call them monkey oranges. And they taste pretty good. They're a little bit like papayas. But I thought it would be a good idea to use them to explain exactly what we mean when we say we're following genetic markers. This is a man at some point in the past. The thing that makes him a man is his Y chromosome, a piece of DNA that's unique to men. When men have sons, they pass on their Y chromosome to those sons. Again, it's what makes them sons. So if we imagine that this man had two sons, they would have essentially identical DNA on the Y chromosome to their father. So they would get his Y chromosome in effect. And if we imagine that they also have sons, those sons, the grandsons of this very first man, would also have essentially the same DNA. But occasionally, we pass on these pieces of DNA, we get a change in a single letter in the sequence. We can call those mutations or markers, and that's what allows geneticists to trace descent. Now, I've represented this marker with a little strip of tape, a little black bar. And just like before, all of the sons of this particular man will have essentially the same Y chromosome, so they will inherit this marker. And in that way, the marker acts effectively as a badge of descent, a marker of descent from this particular man, and that's what we follow. Now, as we move further down the tree, most of the sons will inherit just that single bar, but occasionally, as we saw before, we will get a second change in the Y chromosome. A second marker appears, showing descent from a particular man, in this case, this person, who has first that marker, which came from that person back there, but an additional unique change on his Y chromosome, which he then passes on to all of his descendants. So in the people that we're talking about living in the present day, in this part of the tree, they've got two markers. They clearly trace their descent from this man, but the first marker, remember, arose all the way back there, all those generations ago. The San Bushman markers are quite unlike any others found outside of Africa. In the world's family tree, their branch is the first to split from the rest. That's how I know they must be the oldest tribe on Earth. And now I'm here with them, looking for clues to find out why their ancient brothers and sisters left this place. The first thing I noticed was their incredible language. They speak with clicks and other sounds totally alien to me. And the word for zero? Kora. They try to teach it to me. And for two? Ta. And three? Lani. And four? Go. I can't get that for. Is this strange language a window on the past? Did our ancestors speak like them? Merritt Rulin, a linguist from my old university, Stanford.
Bushman is the only family which has clicks. Those kinds of sounds. None of the other world's language families have these sounds. So this is really what makes Bushman languages different from all of the other world's languages.
Okay, so can you all hear me? Yvonne,
Yes,
can you hear
yes,
me?
Yes, we can hear
Okay.
you.
Okay, good. All right, so enough of him. That is just a blip of the journey of man, a genetic odyssey. So you have an understanding of why you are in fact watching it, okay? And what you are expected to get from it, okay? Also, then you are going to be reading chapter 2, which is one of the 2 chapters that I just posted on the journey of man, a genetic odyssey. My collar is not straight. And what you should be getting from that is, in fact, like the definitions, the early history of Pan-Africanism, and things of that nature. I'm going to go to that really quickly too, just so that we can open up. And I'm 1 minute over now, but I'm going to just highlight a couple of things about how the chapter opens up, and highlight a few points in the chapter. Okay, hold on. All right. Is it sharing? Okay.
Not yet.
It's not sharing yet? Okay. Can you see my screen at all?
Yes, we can see your screen.
Oh, okay. Okay, perfect. All right, good. Okay, so let me move that. So here we go. Chapter 2 is what you're going to be reading in terms of Booker T. Washington, Pan-Africanism and Pan-Africanist. That's the chapter. And here, I opened the chapter up with the quote. It says, "There is, however, a tie which few white men can understand, which binds the American Negro to the African Negro, which unites the Black man of Brazil and the Black man of Liberia, which is constantly drawing into closer relations all the scattered African peoples, whether they are in the old world or the new. I have rarely met in America any one of my race who did not, in one way or another, show a deep interest in everything connected with Africa. The millions of Negroes in America are almost as much interested, for example, in the future of Liberia and Abyssinia, which is Ethiopia, as they are in their own country. There is always a peculiar and scarcely definable bond that binds one Black man to another Black man, whether in Africa, Jamaica, Haiti, or the United States." And so that's a quote from Booker T. Washington. It originates in a book called The Story of the Negro, The Rise of the Race from Slavery, where he chronicles the history of African people from Africa to the United States and through the institution of slavery, ultimately defeating it. And so that frames the chapter. But some of the highlights in the chapter, I give you an understanding of where he gets this interest in Africa from, which is his mother. But also I go right into, on page 16, this is sort of like the highlight of this reading. And it chronicles the history of Pan-Africanism. It lets you know that even before 1900, the first Pan-African conference, where the definition of Pan-Africanism emerges, and before the term is ever used, that the concept had always been there and existed amongst us. And a basic bare bones definition of Pan-Africanism would be the unification of African people for the purpose of eradicating oppression and exploitation. So in other words, our unity for the purpose of collaborating around our condition, right? So if we get together and what we work on is not something to address our condition, it is not Pan-Africanist. So in recent times, we hear a lot of things in the public realm where people are using Pan-Africanism sort of as a noun, right? Like, so-and-so is a Pan-Africanist, okay? As an identity. Well, we should look at it more as a verb. It denotes action. Pan-Africanism is the activity and the engagement of strategizing around our condition, which is oppressive and exploitative around the world. If when we come together, we produce nothing to remedy our condition, then that is not Pan-Africanist. That's just a lot of Black people from different places coming together. Why am I addressing this? Because I think there's some confusion about the definition of Pan-Africanism overwhelmingly for us. And so you have a commentary narrative like, what has it done for us? It hasn't done anything for us. Well, I'm going to give you the literal example about how it comes about, the history of how it comes about. And then chapter 6 is a concrete example of what Pan-Africanism can be in a measurable way, or is in a measurable way. Okay? What would be produced in the context of chapter 6 as an example of Pan-Africanism is the freedom of African people from all over the world to move around the world and including into the United States without racist legislation that prohibited it, as initiated by the US Senate. Okay, so I'll read this little piece and then I'm gonna end. I'm like 7 minutes over. Okay, so prior to the first Pan-African Conference, 19th and early 20th century Pan-Africanism in the US was espoused and practiced by individuals like Bishop Henry McNeil Turner, Martin Delaney, Edward Blyden, Henry Highland Garnett, and Alexander Crummell. But as early as 1829, David Walker's appeal reflected on the history of African civilization and made a connection between those in Africa and Africans scattered abroad. His appeal not only aimed to challenge the institution of slavery, but to educate the masses on African history and culture. Pan-Africanists amongst the African population in the Caribbean included the initiator of the first Pan-African Conference, Henry Sylvester William of Trinidad, Marcus Garvey's mentor, J. Robert Love, and Dr. J. Albert Thorne from Barbados. But decades prior to their emergence, the Haitian Revolution occurred and bolstered Pan-African consciousness in the diaspora as well. Haiti would produce Benito Sylvain and Antenor Furman, both who met Booker T. Washington in 1897 and attended the first Pan-African Conference in 1900. Out of Haiti came a wing of Pan-Africanists who created literary discourse in Haiti, produced the African population, I missed something. Out of Haiti came a wing of Pan-Africanists who created literary discourse on diasporic philosophies on Africa. The African population in Haiti produced Jean Prince Mars and Louis Joseph, who repeatedly explained that Haiti was the embodiment of the irresistible force of a united Africa. In other words, Haiti, the Haitian Revolution, was the embodiment of a multitude of ethnically different African people scattered abroad, and that irresistible force for us to come together. It's like Kwame Ture said, blood is thicker than water. Everywhere we are coming together, right? Everywhere we are. So in other words, we are scattered around. We've got water in between us everywhere we've been scattered. However, we're family. So we are coming together regardless of the water between us, right? Because blood is in fact thicker than water. So he says Pan-Africanism had a dialectical dialectical characteristic to it, which allowed historic events like the Haitian Revolution to produce a response and rise in consciousness amongst African people internationally. Similarly, in 1896, the Ethiopian victory over Italian imperialist forces in the Battle of Ottawa also bolstered the connection between diasporic Africans and those on the continent. So essentially, what's happening is that throughout the African world, we are consistently calling for unity, right? It goes back to David Walker's appeal. He's recalling who we are and the necessity for collective struggle around our condition. Okay, so please do read that. And then it goes into, this chapter goes into, respectively, Washington's relationship with the two of the most prolific Pan-Africanists of his time, which were Du Bois and Garvey. Okay, and you'll see how all of them develop individually as Pan-Africanists and very differently as Pan-Africanists. Okay, I'm gonna stop there. Okay, I'm gonna try to look at your questions really quick and your comments and go, because I'm sorry that I'm over on a WhatsApp group, but not see the link to this video. Can you please post it here in the chat? Okay, Yvonne, you could do that, but you could go on YouTube yourself. It's called The Journey of Man, A Genetic Odyssey. The Journey of Man, A Genetic Odyssey. Let me see if I could post it here. I might still have, let's see. No. Let's see something. Let's see. Okay. I'll put it here in the chat. Okay, so that's The Journey of Man, A Genetic Odyssey. And you can watch it on YouTube. Let's see. The one I have belonged to for the past 2 years. Thank you, Professor. I'm not sure. Okay, hold on. Okay, so I posted it. So you don't have any questions for me. That's good. Trying to make this short and sweet. We're supposed to do this in 30 minutes. And I always go over, but I appreciate your patience with me and all of that. So you have everything you need to read. You have everything that we discussed, and we'll be in there. I've got an issue with my device that I usually use this for. So I'm actually going to be trying to resolve that right now and as soon as I get off of here, so that I can actually do what I'm supposed to do and have more contact. Okay. I think that's it for now. If no one has any questions about that, and please enjoy the reading. You're gonna love this chapter on Pan-Africanism. You're gonna love the information on the case. It's going to open your eyes about a lot of things in terms of the history of Pan-Africanism and give you more concrete understanding. And then the final case, the case that I share, the African exclusion measure. This is something that you can actually utilize in your daily life in terms of understanding how to advocate for African people and challenge Western Western policies. I'm going to say it, and that's such a general term, but I do mean to say it that way, meaning that the policies of Western nations, right? Because make no mistake about it, America is a white American nation. It's an expression of white nationalism, and always and only was meant to be that. Okay, so the immigration of African people into the United States, yes, it was opposed. As for the African people who were enslaved here, that's all they were willing to accept. There is a definitive moment in the chapter 6, this second chapter of that I gave you today. So you have 2 and 6, chapter 2 and 6 explains and details the case where senators US senators said to exclude anyone of the Black or African race from the United States forever, and passed this in the Senate, okay? And was moving to the House to also get votes and pass this piece of legislation. It also is one of the notable times and earlier cases and instances where we can document the intention and the intent to both criminalize African and Black people based on this notion of race and culture. Meaning that the piece of legislation not only would exclude anyone of the Black or African race, but it would exclude them based on putting them in the same category as undesirables and criminals attempting to enter the country. Okay? So Blackness would denote criminality as per this piece of legislation they passed in the Senate and was attempting to pass in the Congress so that it could essentially be law forever and ever and ever. Amen. Right? So no one Black, no one who looked Black, or no one who was African could come into the United States from 1915 on. And it was none other than Booker T. Washington who challenged and defeated this legislation in the Congress. And I tell you the details of how that is done in that case, okay? So very powerful piece of history. It happened in 1915, 1915, literally at this point, 107 years ago, okay? And so the diversity that exists for the African population in the United States is owed to Booker T. Washington, because no one from the Caribbean, Central, South America, or the African continent would have been allowed in the United States after 1915 had he failed to defeat this piece of legislation. Right? Let me say it another way. The only reason why anyone who looks Black or is African could come into the United States from 1915 onward to the present day is because Booker T. Washington defeated a piece of an amendment that was attached to the larger immigration bill called the African Exclusion Measure. Okay? And I tell you the details of that. And why don't we know about this? Because he wasn't the type of person to shout it from the rooftop. He did what he wanted to do. He was trying to protect the flow of African people in and out of this country who were coming here to be educated at Tuskegee. And he was not going to allow the United States to implement and enforce this very overtly racist and you could say xenophobic piece of legislation. Okay? And so he gets involved in a three-pronged attack, but his definitive power is something called the Tuskegee machine, okay, which is a secret network of power brokers. And so I tell you all about that, right? But the difference here is that, or what is you should understand is that this is something concrete when we're talking about Pan-Africanism. And this was not something that was to the benefit of African people internally, except for that we would be able to coalesce with African people who did come in from around the world. But in terms of material reality, yes, he knew they were coming for jobs. Yes, he knew and wanted people to come for education. And there was no jealousy, and there was no angst, and there was no dissension for him with regard to other African people coming into this country. We should take this as a model of how we must act and the attitudes we must have for and about African people globally, right? It's like I said, Kwame Ture said, blood is thicker than water, right? And so while we have been intentionally divided, and we are different and we are diverse, and I'll be getting to that later on in the course. However, we have more in common than not. And the reality is that we have a common denominator in our struggle against white supremacy and culture. And so he even understood that, Washington understood that at that early moment in history and works accordingly. Okay. Look at that. I don't know who this is. It's so weird that you, okay. All right. Well, anyway, I'm not going to get into that. I can't add you. The administrator has to add you. So put your name and your comment to be added to the WhatsApp group in the general message to everyone or the I Love Black People administrator. Okay, I don't know what this means from Michael. It's a lot of numbers. Michael Anthony respected. I don't know. Maybe that was a mistake. Okay. I did share the book chapter in the WhatsApp group. I will double check again to make sure everybody has it in there. But what I was showing you is straight from the WhatsApp group, so you know how to go to it and open it and all of that. Okay, that's more like, can you get in contact with I Love Black People in Ghana? Yeah, I'm sure. So, you know, look into the group and see who's from Ghana and you can connect with them, I'm sure. Okay, so I don't want to take up any more time. I'm well over my time. So thank you all for being patient. Sorry for not getting things transmitted properly via the groups last week. However, today you have all that you need, and it brings us up to speed, and we'll be dialoguing, okay, around some of the materials, okay, in the group. So thank you all. I am because we are, and stay safe until next week, okay? Peace.
Yes, thank you very much, Dr.
Thank you.
Okay.
Thank you.
Enjoy the rest of your weekend. I am.
Okay, you too. I am because we are. Thank you.
Bye.
Bye-bye.